First of all, I want to ask Spirit from the four sacred directions to let me speak. Give me permission to speak. Secondly, I want to say good morning to each and every one of you. And it's really an honor to be here before you. It's really an honor to be. I never believed that I would be inside this legislation. I have been coming here for many years, but out in the front, demonstrating against the injustice that have passed in this legislation. In 1972, there was a very repressive law passed against agricultural workers, and at that time, I was working for Cesar Chavez, organizing farm workers here in the state of Arizona, because I was born here. I was born in Chandler back in 1932, and I come from a migrant farm worker background. When I came here in the 60s, when I was having strikes up on the western part of the valley, because of the treatment of agricultural workers. We didn't have no bathrooms, we didn't have no drinking water, we didn't have nothing. And who was out there? It wasn't just Mexicanos and Chicanos, but it was Tohono O'odham, Navajo people that used to come to work at this ranch. Over 300 families of Navajos. And one of the persons that came to help me organize the agricultural workers, the Navajos, was Ben Henley, one of the first elected officials from the Navajo Nation. So, you have a long track and a long history of doing this, working for this injustice. So, it's why it isn't the first time, and it won't be the last time that we will come here, because of all this psychological mind warfare that this legislation is playing on us. And I'm not talking about when they passed all these repressive laws like 1070. It wasn't because they felt, it felt that it was a form of harassment so that we would leave the state, so that the Mexicanos and Chicanos and O'odhams from Mexico and the Cocopas from Mexico and all these other nations, and the Opatas from Mexico, and the Lipan Apache from Mexico would leave this country. But they have all the right to be here. They have all the right because we're from this hemisphere. We have been here since time immemorial. And we have been traversing this continent since time immemorial, from Alaska all the way to Tierra del Fuego. It isn't something new. This isn't a new phenomena. This migration of indigenous people from one end of this hemisphere to the other end. And that's why I'm so glad to see you here, because I feel when my brother here, Steve Newcomb, came out with the Doctrine of Discovery, and he put it out at the United Nations, man, that's changed my whole point of view of how to look at things. I made over 300 copies of that and gave it all over, so that I felt that should be taught in the schools, that all Indian children, not just the Indian children, but the European Americans, the Asiatic Americans, the African Americans should know this Doctrine of Discovery, should know about this law that was passed to help us, the indigenous people, in 2007. And it should be part of the curriculum in the schools. Not what this legislation is trying to do, like Tom Horn and Hump and Tell, trying to erase ethnic studies, banning books like they did in Nazi Germany. That's what they done. Ban books. The Long Range Entente was banned. Pedagogy of the Oppressed was banned. All those books that teach you, where is that whole idea of learning? We don't have a Western mentality concept of intellect. We have our property that we own, our own people. We have our leaders, we have our intellectuals, but nothing is ever mentioned about them. Nothing. Only about Socrates or somebody back in Europe, but nothing about our own people. We need that. And we, as indigenous people, should force this legislation and any legislation that tries to eliminate our studies, our intellectuals, so they can be taught in the schools. That's why I believe when they say university, it means universal, that you take everything. Not these business schools that are being built now. Not these business schools where all they teach you how to be greedy, how to make money. No, we need poetry. When a Mexica warrior was formed, he not only learned how to fight, but he had to learn poetry, he had to learn how to animal husbandry, he had to learn all those things. And the schools were part of the curriculum in the Mexica country. And that was part of our education. And as the Europeans came and they eliminated and they imposed their mentality that they picked up in the West, no. If we allow this, those of us that are in school boards, those of us that are in the legislation, if we allow these people to continue to just impose their concepts and their ideas, then we're wrong. We are not doing our duty. When somebody comes to interview me and they say to me, well, what do you think of the Latino and the Hispanic world? What do you think about them? I said, the moment that you call me a Latino or you call me an Hispanic, I'm not going to give you no interview. You can call me a Mexica, you can call me an Indian, you can call me a Chicano, but you cannot call me a Latino or Hispanic because I'm neither of them. I wasn't born in Spain. I didn't come from Spain. My ancestry is Opata. That's my ancestry from my mother's side. I don't know my father's side, but I do know my mother's side. And who am I going to believe? Am I going to believe the government? Or am I going to believe my mother? And they say that we don't exist, that the Opatas don't exist, but every time I go to Sonora and I make out these bulletin boards and I said, en busca de Opatas, in search of Opatas, people come up to me and say, yo soy Opata, yo soy Opata, yo soy Opata, yo soy Opata. So, our people and our children aren't going to learn by osmosis. They got to learn because we got to talk to them. Like in the old days when they had the storytelling in the winter times. We got to do that. We got to talk to them. We cannot allow the television to become our babysitter. We cannot allow that. I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for listening to me. And sí se puede. Thank you, senor. That's all right, nephew.
I like to hear the stories from Gustavo about Cesar Chavez and the impact that they had on the policies and changes against migrant workers. It's always good to hear.